So we had the Game Awards, and we had another big announcement from Microsoft with their new studio, The Initiative, which is a studio they formed and hired people for, developers from all over the place, to try to make a really good top tier, they've even used quadruple A, I think, at one point, studio for a game. And we heard rumors it was Perfect Dark. It was revealed at the Game Awards that it is indeed Perfect Dark. And after playing a bit of Cyberpunk, seeing the reaction to this game, something that's been in development for a while, hyped up for a while, I think now with a lot of the projects that Microsoft themselves have announced and they're going to start building them up, obviously, as we get closer to release, but there will be a time period here where the hype level continues to grow just on its own. I think the pressure right now is certainly on Microsoft, and especially after this last generation with the Xbox One being fairly poor for Microsoft from a first-party perspective outside of, obviously, Gears of War, Forza, and Halo to a degree. Master Chief Collection launched broken. Halo 5 was a mixed bag with the campaign not being great, but the multiplayer being pretty good, I would say, for the most part there. But I wanted to talk a bit about what's happening here with Microsoft and why I do think the pressure is really mounting against them to deliver with some of the stuff they've announced here. Guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure the like button helps out a ton. If you're new here to the Small Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So after we had Cyberpunk release, I've been working through it. I had a video that I was going to put out with some of my thoughts on it. I did realize that no matter how good the game really was, it was not going to live up to the hype and the expectations that have been built just over time. The game was announced 2012. It's been like 8 years. People have been speculating on it before we even saw gameplay. So no matter what happened here, they could have released the greatest game of all time, and it probably still would not live up to the expectations that people had and that were set and built over time. And now with Microsoft announcing a Fable reboot, Perfect Dark, and Halo Infinite falling out of its release date, which was going to be next to a game console launch, they have to have a good, I would say, couple of releases here with these games. See, because Microsoft's had like 3 pillars that they could lean on in a generation. It's usually been like a Halo, we've had a Gears of War, and then you have a Forza. Generally, they would do that. Those games would come out and they'd be pretty good. They'd get good reviews. Forza probably being the best reviewed out of all of them, especially recently. But now they're bringing some other ones into the mix. Perfect Dark is a revival of a game that a lot of us remember fondly, not for the Xbox 360 release, Perfect Dark Zero, because it wasn't a great game. It came out alongside the Xbox 360, I believe, right at launch, and it had that at least going for it, where it was a game you would pick up because you got the brand new system and you wanted to have a new game for it, but it wasn't necessarily a good game. So we all remember the N64 version and kind of the memories with that, but I do see a lot of people who just didn't really even understand what was happening when that trailer was shown, like that Perfect Dark was coming back. They were just like, oh, all right. So in some ways, Perfect Dark is getting a revival for some of us, and others, it's like a brand new thing for them. It might as well have been a new IP for some people. They may have heard the name, but they're not at all familiar with it. And like with that game, the list of the Initiative members, the people who work there right now, is crazy. Like, they have certainly gathered a ton of top tier talent to form this studio. So the expectations just around the roster of developers here and designers is super high. And now they're taking Perfect Dark and they're going to do something with it here, which looks to be a reboot and a narrative driven game. So what we've been used to from Sony, Microsoft is going to attempt here. And I was a little concerned about this because while I think the Initiative has the talent to pull it off, I've been a bit concerned about how Microsoft has kind of run things in the background. And I think the biggest example of a poorly run project was Halo Infinite, because that game has a ton of pressure on it now. I mean, one, it's Halo. So, like, you look at this and you say, well, that should be your most protected IP, and they kind of did because they didn't just release it. They probably could have, and it would have been broken and buggy and would have taken several updates. Kind of thinking of like the Master Chief Collection as an example, and it eventually would have worked, and it would have been on Game Pass, and it was just said, oh, just download it there. But they decided to hold off on it, and certainly I think that comes down to management. Sure, 343 seem to have their own issues, but remember, Matt Booty, he goes around to the different studios and checks in on them. Phil Spencer's supposed to be checking in, and somehow this one slipped through the cracks to the point where even they seemed surprised. at what was shown during that July presser, the whole thing where they showed the gameplay, and it didn't look great. Apparently to them, they were just like, oh, what was that? And now that we have the length of the delay, which seems to be about a year, basically, it's going to come out fall 2021, so we could be looking at sometime in like October or November, really. The delay certainly mounts more pressure on it because we assume it's going to just look better. It's just going to overall be a better game. It's going to have this really good single player, apparently, that's going to push the boundaries of what we know Halo to be. And then the multiplayer is going to be separate, and it's going to be free to play, and it sounds like it's going to be an ongoing live service situation where you can just download that and don't have to worry about getting the Halo Infinite single player. So like the single player has now been broken off, and we assume they're going to try to make it feel like it should be a $60 game on its own. But like Halo, when you'd buy it, you'd get most of your time out of that multiplayer that's not going to be separate. So like right there, I'm thinking, wow, a lot of pressure has to be on the developers, the designers, the story, all of this stuff to make it feel like an entire adventure worth $60, $70 even if they decide to move up to that. And then we have Fable, which is a reboot of the series being done by Playground Games. And Playground Games makes some amazing open world racing games in the Forza Horizon franchise. I mean, every time a Forza Horizon game comes out, we all look at it and we say, yep, that is a good racing game. It's a ton of fun. Forza Horizon 4 is one of the best racing games I've ever played. Like, everyone should be checking that out. It's on Game Pass and all of this. But now they're going to be making the shift over to an action-adventure RPG in the Fable universe. A universe that, well, some of us may have grown up with. The original Xbox had Fable. You know, we had Fable 2 and 3 on the Xbox 360, and 1 and 2 were good. 3, well, it was 3. But still, there is a lot to live up to with that franchise, and I don't think Fable will be coming out for a little while. Like, that could be late 2022, maybe, early 2023. But this is another situation where you have a developer getting a bit out of their comfort zone. I'm sure they can build the world, but then you get down to building the characters, giving them backstories, coming up with an entire narrative, making sure the RPG mechanics are correct, the fighting mechanics, all these different things. It's certainly something that isn't exactly I guess, proven by Playground. And then finally, I would say Microsoft and their management is certainly under a lot of pressure because we've seen a lot of games come out from Microsoft and they just fail to reach the critical acclaim that we see Sony on the other side reach with a lot of games, and they're all like different. Like I know people will say, oh, the gameplay is kind of similar with them, and yeah, they kind of are, right? But like, we'll have Ghost of Tsushima and then Last of Us Part 2 come out. Very different games at their cores, but they both come out and they're very good. Like, just like that, right? Even Days Gone, which got beaten down a bit, it is much better now, and I feel like if that was on the Xbox, it probably would have been better than a lot of these games that Microsoft came up with, right? So there is a lot of pressure on just the overall management for Microsoft with Matt Booty and Phil Spencer to deliver some top-tier, high-quality games, because it does look like that Sony is gearing up for this generation already. They've been showing several different games that are coming out seemingly in the next 14 months or so. We've talked about Ratchet and Clank, we've talked about Gran Turismo, God of War, Forbidden West, and then we've already had Demon's Souls, and there are still a few other games that they're going to be revealing pretty soon, I'll say, and it's going to get a bit out of control on Sony's side, just kind of building up the PS5. So while Microsoft is at least revealing some stuff, it has to actually be good when it comes out, and that's the biggest thing here. It really just comes back to they finally have to prove themselves when it comes to developing games in-house, their first-party studios. They have a ton of first-party studios, and now it's really time to deliver. So let me know what you guys think about this down below. After more and more announcements coming from Microsoft, I feel like the hype level is going to continue building, and we could end up with a cyberpunk situation around Halo Infinite, or maybe Fable, or even Perfect Dark. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.